Well, I don't really know how I wrote myself into this, but I somehow managed to. Alright, so I guess we'll get into it. I'm going to be explaining to you, or trying to be explaining to you, the differences between the 1967 to 72 Chevy trucks. Alright, let's get into it. So, we'll start off small here. When this truck was first introduced, the second generation, the Action line, in 1967, a lot of features from the previous generation, the 60 to 66 C10, were carried over. Some of these features, such as a small back window, as can be seen in the first generation, were carried over to the second generation C10, as can be seen in this photo that I've so nicely taped to the back of my own window. Of course, my truck being 1970 has the big back window, which is what came in 68 and onwards, and even in some late 67s. Alright, so here we see 67. Of course, this is an original example here of a truck, the 67. The recessed grille, which the 69 72s do not have. Now this does not have side marker lights. It does have this. This is an emblem which glows in the dark. At nighttime it lights up. It's very, very cool. In 1968, the government made General Motors and Chevy and Pacific add the side marker light to the C10. So, as you can see here, this does not have it, this does. Now these are the same design, however this one has added the side marker light and does have the little Chevy bow tie glow in the dark badge. This one does right here. Then, for 1969, the C10 got a complete refresh. The 69 to 70s, which is what I have, had a more outwardly grille. As you can see, this one here has one as well. This for the 70. They had slight differences. This one here has a nice grille shape in the back. This has sideways bars in the back behind this grille. Of course, removed, unfortunately, was this beautiful bow tie glow-in-the-dark emblem, as is seen in the 67 and 68. That was removed for the 69 all the way up into the 72s, was completely removed. Instead, it will be replaced with a C10 badge, a C/10, which my truck has right there. Higher trim options also had Cheyenne, or would have pretty much anything else that would be on the side, usually custom 10. This one all the way up to C30, C40, C50, whatever it would be. This model does not have the Chevy bow tie, which is weird. It was likely removed by this owner himself. But this should have the bow tie this one has right here. Also, as you can see here, we have the circle mirrors. Of course, mine are square, but that was an option depending on which truck it was. These also all have circle mirrors besides this one, which has the tow package mirror option, which is very cool to see. Alright, this is actually my favorite year grill. Not biased because I own the 70, but I'm just saying. Alright. This is a 72 or 71 to 72 C10 here. This is your 71 and your 72. Now this is my least favorite year of the second generation. I don't really like the honeycomb styling. I think it looks good in the Blazer body. I don't think it looks good on the C10. Now, as I was saying earlier, you can see here, it says custom 10 on the side. You can make that out. That's what I was discussing earlier when I said that sometimes these badges had custom 10 on the side instead of the regular C10. And this has the honeycomb styling, as you can see here, which is pretty cool. This one also has the honeycomb styling for the 72, which is the last year, unfortunately, for these trucks. You can get different wheel options, such as the caps here with the steel wheels, or you can get full-on caps, which are also very cool. Unfortunately, the previous owner of my truck, or the original owner, whoever which it was, decided to remove those and put these later wheels on, which I eventually will return to these, which is what I believe my truck had. As you can see, all these have the big back window because, as we know, in 67, as I had taught you guys previously, they stopped making the small back window, unfortunately. It's very cool to see. Alright, so now getting up and going inside the truck, I'll show you some of the interior differences now. Alright, so starting in here, as you can see, inside of the interior of my truck, we have the 67 to 68 interior here. This prominently featured the different wheel, which of course later trucks would not have. They would switch to this. And they also have the manual choke. Now, it depended on what you got, but most trucks later on did not have a manual choke. Unless, of course, you ordered the electric choke, which is what my truck has. This truck example here, which is what they replaced the steering wheel with in 1969, as you can see, is a little bit different. Actually, it's a lot of bit different than the original steering wheel, which they had here. This truck actually has the very cool rally gauge package option, and it is a custom, as you can see, based upon the emblems that are on the glove box door here. My truck does not have the cool rally gauge package, as you can see right here, but it does have the wheel. Of course, it's missing the sender emblem, which I'm going to find at some point. This is an original wheel off of another 70 C10, so it's around the original date of when the truck would have been built. Yeah, it does not have the rally gauge package here, and somebody has gone and replaced the stereo, unfortunately. Some trucks came with AC, which is a very cool option, which would have been here on a little circle vent right there on both sides, and one above the radio right here. Of course, this truck here is a manual, as you can see by the third pedal, and so is this 68. Most C10s were manual, some were automatic, depending on what you ordered, but all of them came on the tree. Now, my truck was originally on the tree, as you can see here, but somebody has gone and moved it to the floor a long time ago. Alright, so now you've seen the interior here. Let's get into the grille differences, as I talked about earlier a little bit. Alright, so here's the front of my truck. So taped here, I have so helpfully printed this out. Oh, by the way, thank you to Mr. Albanese in the shop for providing me with the free paper. I appreciate that very much. Anyway, so as I touched on earlier a little bit, you can see how the 67 and 68 C10s are basically the same, besides the side marker light on the side. Here you can see here, 67, 68 only, the laid-back hood. The hood was laid back, pushed back, which is another change they made. Of course, my truck has the more raised forward hood to fit this grille here. Alright, now, as I discussed earlier, the 69 has the mesh background. Well, the 70 has the vertical bars. The 70 also, depending on which plant it was, but some of them had black painted headlight bezels and black around. I see my truck did have the black around. I'm not too sure if this is the original grille or not, but it is pretty bent out of shape and wacky, as you can see. It was hit a long time ago. It's a pretty cool story, actually, but I'm not going to get into that here. But yeah, this is bent out of shape a very long time ago, probably before I was born, I believe. Anyway, so this here, you see the vertical bars. Unfortunately, my truck is missing it because the grille is all wacky and out of shape. One day, it will find its place back on my truck, hopefully. This is the honeycomb grilled style of 71 and 72. Not really my favorite, but it is pretty cool. You'll see here also that they have even more lights that could have been added to the bottom of your bumper for that year that the previous 4 years did not have. Alright, so let's get into other things now. Alright, so let's discuss some engine options here. This truck is sporting the 250 cubic inch inline 6. Now you can also get a 292. You can get a 302. You can get a 350 later on, and the big boy, the 396 V8. Those were just some of the few engine options you can get, depending on which dealership you're going to. However, the big kahuna, the 396, was really the only one that was offered in terms of power towards the end of the year in 1972. Moving on to the bed, which is something I need to replace completely because this thing is shot out. This truck, this example here, has the step side. Now you can get the regular step side, the short box step side, which is what this is. You can get an elongated version, which is basically a long bed step side, which would be elongated here. And then you can get, of course, the fleet side and the long version, the long box, or the short box fleet side, which is a shorter version, essentially the size of a fleet side truck. Alright, let's get into the back. So here's the back here. Now, my truck has these aftermarket square lights. However, all C10s would have come with the circle lights. Only really the step sides came with them. The fleet sides had the taillights incorporated into the bed of the truck on both sides. This is original, however, this is correct. The circle reverse lights on both sides here. And of course, the latest square body bumper, which is not original and which is crooked and which needs to be replaced when I replace the bed. Alright, so that's pretty much it. I hope you guys all enjoyed.